one point that I'd like to be able to double click is that the time to value is a critical thing that Ray has been very focused on, and I think we have heard from DXC quite clearly that time to value is a very critical metric of success nowadays. This was what drove this research. Can we use Amelia's learning capabilities to ingest knowledge? Can we make it so simple that you just take a transcript and just feed it in, and a process which takes about 6 months to be able to hand create these business process flows, can you automatically create the knowledge trees? That was the big part. Can Amelia itself automatically learn just by saying a 6-month, another lesser known company that Mike's CEO is from, we'll leave that name of the GSI aside, but they have adopted it also as a platform because of their interest in being able to leverage a 6-month to 7-month process and shrink it down to 6 hours. Take knowledge that exists. Everyone has got transcripts. Everyone has got ticket data. Can you just feed that into Amelia, and Amelia automatically build the knowledge trees? And that's what you saw. I'm definitely going to sit you down and make you cancel your dinner plans about A-star graph matching and merging algorithms. But in earnest, I would say that it's really fascinating how you match and merge knowledge trees based on different data that you're inputting directly from transcripts itself. And that's what you saw Josh just demonstrate to you. It's a real exciting breakthrough. I'd like to invite Ray again so that I can get to ask him some questions about things that are brimming in my mind and things that are brimming in some of our folks who are joined us the seminar mind. So one of the first things is you talked about the engagement, customer engagement. Now, whether it is life, wealth, whether it is PNC, customer engagement, personalization, KYC, knowing the customer, a large segment of the belief is that as a core is getting commoditized, that the costing is also kind of getting to levels of variances which are within a tolerant zone. The differentiation in why you would choose an insurance company over the other is moving to the edge, and customer engagement becomes a big differentiation characteristic of why people want to choose one insurance company over another. How is your digital campaign of transformation that you're leading yielding better customer engagement through DXC than what you find, and fostering that for different customers of yours?
Yeah, if you think about it, if you're an insurance company, you care about customer engagement. Yeah. You also care about the processing that happens behind that. So yeah. Whether it's the sales process where you want to make sure it's a very positive experience with these complex products, and are they getting the right products? Are they insuring their families in the right way? Yeah. Are they insuring themselves in the right way? Or on the other side, when they're getting paid by a claim, many insurance companies differentiate themselves by the process in which claims are paid. Yeah. You have a high-end insurance company, you file a claim, you want to be paid fairly, you want to be paid quickly, you want to be paid efficiently. So it is that edge dealing with the customer, but it's also about the back-end processing that differentiates an insurance company. It's just not that consumer engagement. Yeah. And one of the things that we see here is that the ability to automate that interaction in a way that makes it more efficient, more effective, drives increased consumer engagement, but it also drives satisfaction with the claims process. It could drive satisfaction with the new business process. And one of the things that we really have seen with Amelia, and it was actually just shown in the demo, is that the relationship gets better and better, and it gets more and more efficient. So the numbers that I use in my presentations, that was after a 16-week implementation. Yeah. But every week, every month, we're looking forward to the gains that we're going to see by taking things like the transcripts, ingesting those, using those to allow us to learn better and make us more efficient, more effectively. So you get an exponential increase in productivity and customer engagement.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Every time, Ray, I talk to you, I learn something. Origination, today I learned that, wow, the buying patterns are such that 80% of products actually require a contact for origination. That makes it challenging for you to be able to drive digital origination, particularly because cognitive capabilities of your agents, digital agents, have to be at a very high level, unless the containment is going to be very limited.
Right. And
it's going to be just a point of sieve and intermediary before it hits your human agent.
Right. And yeah, and you know, this notion of 80% of the time it requires a conversation, it's also a situation where that leads to consumer dissatisfaction and unrest. So not only is it more efficient and effective for an insurance company to have a digital experience, as consumers now we're trained to be able to buy what we want, process what we want online in an automated way. And having to talk to a human is something that is very frustrating and highly inefficient. And you know, this combined solution of Amelia with our back-end solutions through our API is something that really is transforming that experience, whether it be a chatbot or voice of one way or another.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, I think origination impacting, look, the trifecta is even known to the ignorant minds like me, is obviously a lower cost. McKinsey says you can go 30% and more, and I think you've done that much more than that. But you also drive up better NPS and engagement, of course, great. And then you actually improve revenue improvements. It's a big, huge win for customers of DXC to be able to have that triple play come into reality through your business operations. Now, tell me about your, one of the things that you mentioned is about call center operations. And it's very interesting, again, for me to learn as a math guy, the numbers are not lost on me, where 55% of the inbound volume is about information, and another 35% of the volume is about transactions, and only about 10 is for conflict resolution. So that creates a very interesting opportunity for the extent of call volume that can be impacted by a digital agent. And before this, the typical expectation was that a lot of the things are going to be about conflict resolution. And in typical telco operations, the numbers are slightly skewed, but I think that the standardization that you've achieved in digital, it seems, in insurance, it seems that 90% of it is directly in a sweet spot for you.
Yeah, and you know, that sweet spot is in such a way that all the capabilities that we've received with Amelia, whether it be the call center routing, or the call routing itself, the IVR verification is, it seems like a very simple concept, but in this industry it isn't, where most of the time the IVR validation really wasn't effective, and you saw, I think it was a 20-time improvement in that statistic. So, you know, the ability to really help transform the company, transform that experience is really phenomenal, and it does yield great results in the trifecta. And when we think about the trifecta, we actually think about it, there's really two important audiences. There's the consumer, but there's also the agent. And then there's the agent to consumer relationship, because, you know, a big part of complex insurance in this country is sold through an agent. So you have to build that relationship with the agent, but then the insurance companies usually are left to servicing that consumer. Mm-hmm. So the only way you can do that effectively is you have to capture that data from the agent, and then use that data to serve the consumer. Mm-hmm. And, you know, having a solution like this only helps make that easier and more efficient and better.
Oh, that's terrific. Take us to the next level. Decision AI. How are you affecting, and how are you planning on affecting, really? You've got a tremendous amount right now. We are starting to see a tremendous amount at Amelia servicing you, starting to see a tremendous amount of digital exhaust coming out of these conversations. Now, there are certain base causal analytics that we can do that can help us identify these are the contributing factors to a good NPS score or bad NPS scores, allowing you to be the surgeon and say, okay, how do I adjust these factors to be able to get to better? But take it on the business outcome side and take us where you see a future and where you would like to see cognitive solutions go in future, like risk and underwriting risk and profiles associated with it dynamically, pairing the two. How do you see this digital exhaust and the embedded intelligence in it being monetized for these kind of outcomes?
Yeah, you know, there's fantastic opportunity there. There's a lot of great use cases in which we could see that happening, whether it be on the claims processing side, understanding what happens during the claims process. You have somebody calling in, they're usually in a distress situation. You know, if you get in a car wreck, typically you're gonna call up over a phone, you're gonna wanna talk to somebody. Yeah. So being able to route them to the right person with the right EQ is something that's very, very important in a claim situation. A hurricane hits their house, they get in a car wreck, and allowing that to happen, using that information to get better data about the claims itself, to make sure that it's a more efficient, more effective process. Looking at the data from an underwriting perspective, you know, insurance is all math. Mm-hmm. It's, you know, taking the right risk at the right price and providing that insurance to an individual. So using that data to make better underwriting decisions, both in personal lines and commercial lines and from a life insurance policy, taking this massive amount of data that we see and using it to write better risks. Because ultimately, insurance companies will be more profitable if they're writing risks and pricing risks the right way, which allows them to protect themselves, but also allows them to sell the business. Yeah. And there's a fine line there between protecting yourself too much and having a price that's too high, and making sure that you have the right price to win. And so we see tremendous analytic capabilities as we get more and more data in the system, as we ingest more data. And you know, one of the things when I think about Amelia, I think about using, you know, the typical home voice AI system that you have that are very popular, like Alexa and others, which really doesn't compare with Amelia, but that's what the consumer wants. Today, if you're at your house and you say, Alexa, give me information on my insurance policy, they won't have any idea on what that is. But by having you front end that process, by having you take that information, make it conversational, and then marrying it with a robust back end system and a conversational API, we can do really fantastic things together to really serve that customer. And you know, we talk about down the road what's going to happen in 5 and 10 years, but where I get real excited is some of the charts that I showed, that the fact that 80% of the time somebody is talking to a human today. And how can we drive down that interaction so that 80% becomes 10%, and what really, you know, ultimately what will happen in that engagement. And that will drive more transformation in this industry than even some of the more robust analytical models. It's just, you know, redefining how customers get served and how customers buy product is a very simple thing with a great opportunity. You know, insurance is typically a laggard industry, and by allowing us to really transform that experience for everybody and do it in a way that the consumer is more used to, such as what they're seeing with their other online services, can really provide transformational characteristics to our customer base.
This is very exciting stuff, Ray, because particularly, you know, the claims processing and policy administration, driving operational efficiencies, you've already done that. You're doing more and more of that, obviously. Those are just table stakes to you. And now where you're planning on applying it is towards decision AI and actually getting a real differentiation for your customers through better outcomes and underwriting, whether it's risk or risk managed with profile. All of those things are really, really exciting, and that's what really takes us to an avant-garde level of like where the future is going to lie. Now, you mentioned in your talk right now about insurance typically has been a laggard. Obviously, you are trying to leapfrog it. But there are certain barriers that insurance, the big insurance giants have had, and who could claim that regulation was ever a big asset, but except that the big insurance companies have got good regulatory boundaries that don't allow easy breaches, let's say. They also have the strength of the balance sheet that you need to be able to service, which typical digital attackers may not have. But you find it to be relentless. The digital attackers keep coming from the other side, and then you find it very interesting, the omni-channel, and where some of the bigger orthogonal giants are, the Alibabas and others, are starting to offer insurance, and the ancillary insurance that Tesla will offer to you, and other things that if you're buying through a product OEM itself is offering these things. Tell me about how much is this breach, as we are living in this digital Darwinistic curve, how much is an insurance giant concerned about how fast, and what is the difference between a laggard and in your experience, because you are obviously doing it at scale for 1,900 customers, the returns and the margin improvements or the margin compressions that you're seeing between the front runners and the laggards? What is it that you're typically seeing as these digital front runners take advantage of running with more efficient models as opposed to the laggards?
Yeah, a lot of it depends on the industry itself. Is it life insurance? Is it property and casualty insurance? That plays a role in the emergence of the digitally advanced companies. One of the very unique things about the United States when it comes to insurance is, especially in property and casualty, it's like working with 50 different countries, because every single state has its own series of regulations, and it's very difficult and expensive to go from state to state. That's why you see a lot of regional writers of insurance, and you don't, in addition to the national writers. So this 50-state jurisdiction that we have in the U.S. actually creates barriers for people who are not from the industry to be able to come in and enter the industry.
Yeah.
And so you have to be an established insurance company who knows how to deal with these regulatory issues, and then have the strong balance sheet. From the life insurance side, we're seeing it's the fact that you're buying a life insurance policy, and often this life insurance policy can be enforced for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years until when somebody gets insured, until the time when that claim is being paid at their ultimate claim date, that it's a very, very long process. So companies have to have a tremendous amount of patience to make this happen. And in a situation that we've partnered in one of the situations, this is a book of business where the insurance policies were written in some cases 30, 40, and 50 years ago. And then the claims getting paid out ultimately now. So it's not a place for the faint of heart. It's not a place for insurtech companies to come in and do and get a quick hit. It's about patience, it's about balance sheet, it's about servicing a customer for the long term. It's about, oftentimes you're dealing with an elderly person who really needs a lot of care, a lot of information. But you could also be dealing with the millennial, as I talked about in the presentation, who really doesn't understand the product. So they need to talk to an individual. So the barriers for entry are very, very high for people to come into the insurance space, and we really don't see a lot of people who come in a sustainable way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fascinating. I know my timekeeping abilities are legendary, so we have got Ken trying to wave a big banner there. But I could talk to you forever about this because it's so fascinating about all the things that I learned. If there are no, and with your indulgence, I'd like to be able to just ask one question tailing on that, and if there are no questions online, I'd like to take advantage of that myself. So one of the things that you talked about is like the framework here varying from state to state. This morning I was talking to one of the top CEOs at AICO in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They are obviously, it's no knowledge, in G20 they happen to be 19. It's HRH MBS's motivation to be able to get to 14 is now 14 now, actually, from 19 to 14, and he wants to break the top 10. And he really wants to become an exporter of digital banking, digital insurance, and digital retail services worldwide. How much is your practice, and obviously languages become a big, and the dialects of Arabic become a big issue for such entities. How much of this are you finding that you could globalize the digital practice and go across different language and cultural boundaries?
Yeah, if you look at our customers, our fastest growing region by far is Asia, where we're seeing a lot of companies, actually U.S. domiciled companies, entering into the Asian markets over the last 10 to 20 years because they see a phenomenal opportunity to insure, particularly on the life side, because in the past, many of these countries did not have life insurance. And now as companies like India get more and more wealth, people start to buy life insurance for their families. And we're seeing that through many different places in the Asia continent itself. So having the ability to operate in multiple dialects is very important to us, and having the ability to be able to reach out to these different countries it is very important to us. And we see that as really something that there's a whole lot of activity on. And we're seeing it in our own growth, and we're seeing our customers have that need.
Well, Ray, this has been extremely informative for me. I've really enjoyed learning from you. I hope the rest of our audience, and I thank the hundreds that actually make it a point to join us on these afternoons so that they can learn just like I learned from you in these experiences. But thank you very much for coming and joining us and sharing the transformation that you're leading worldwide.
Oh, it's all my pleasure. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks again. Thank you. Absolutely.